Hello everyone, and welcome to this new series I'm trying out for Video Games for Fun Weekly Podcast. I am Viddy of Video Games for Fun, and let's talk about why I am doing this podcast and what is going on and what are the topics I'm going to be covering in the first episode of the Video Games for Fun Weekly Podcast. The decision for doing a podcast has come in the heat of the moment, really, because of the upcoming release of Paper Mario: The Origami King on the Nintendo Switch on July 17th. I was hoping to do a series of Paper Mario YouTube videos, and I just realized I wouldn't necessarily have the time or energy to cover the Paper Mario series, so I thought the best place to talk about them would be in some form of a podcast. And also, I have been meaning to do a podcast for a while, or I've been thinking about it, and well, that is where we are now. Now, at the moment, I myself am the only one talking in this podcast, which I guess is also Excuse me. Here you go. That's what I was about to say. I am feeling a little bit nervous about doing this, but I've got some exciting topics to talk about. I wish I could be talking about them with other people. There was a plan to actually do that, but that will have to be looked at over the next few weeks. Maybe any of you listening or watching could join in. Or if you don't want to join in, just suggest topics or ask questions, and they will hopefully be looked at in the future episodes of the podcast. And the podcast at the moment is only being recorded for YouTube in the form of the video form. And I will look at other platforms. I'm not sure exactly when, but certainly down the line for audio-only platforms. I have listened myself to podcasts through audio-only platforms, like I guess similar to iTunes, what have you. So I could say things like, if you're listening to this audio only, you can check out the YouTube channel, Video Games for Fun, and of course any YouTube channels or other social medias that any of my guests might be happy to be using. So, hopefully we'll do this each week, and this is still a bit of a test one. I'm really nervous and excited about this, and what no better reason to be nervous is the topics I'm going to be talking about for the first episode. The first main topic is the Paper Mario series in regards to the new game, The Origami King, coming out, in nearly a week from now, actually, so that'll be interesting. We're talking about the anticipation for the game, and maybe the worries that people are having for the game, and talk about the history of the Paper Mario series and how it's changed, and talk about how the fans have responded to each game. The other topics after that have been suggested by Tayson's Gaming Spot. Hello, Tayson, if you're listening/watching. The other main topic is my belated reaction to the PlayStation 5, which had a conference or event back in June earlier this year. And to close the podcast or close the episode is just an outro discussion or just, talk, I guess, about the RPGs I have been playing this year. So, there will be time codes, surely, of course, to look at these topics. There might be more than 2 or 3 topics down the line, but it's okay, I think, to start with just the 2 or 3. So let's look at the first topic. So, the Paper Mario series. First, we have to provide a bit of context. For those of you who don't know, the Paper Mario series is a spiritual successor, if you like, to Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars on the Super Nintendo. And it also led to the Mario & Luigi series as well. I have played Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64 and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door on the GameCube. And I have also played some hours each of Super Paper Mario on the Wii, Paper Mario Sticker Star on the 3DS, and Paper Mario Color Splash on the Wii U. And of course, the 6th main entry, The Origami King, is coming out soon. Now, understandably, my not having completed fully the Paper Mario games released after The Thousand Year Door might mean this opinion is a little bit vague or lacking in nuance, but there's a good reason behind the analysis of the Paper Mario games there that I will discuss. So, Paper Mario and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, the first of which I have already reviewed on my channel, Video Games for Fun, are both very good games. Much like Super Mario RPG, they focus more on story, on humour, whereas the general Mario series is mostly Peach just gets kidnapped by Bowser, and Mario just has to go through a bunch of levels or worlds just to save her and stop Bowser and everything. Simple story, but at least the games tend to be fun. But Super Mario RPG and the Paper Mario series proved that Mario could do an RPG. You engaged in turn-based combat, you explore these worlds, look for secrets, talk to NPCs, and have, even for Mario games, a more in-depth story. That might even make fun of the Peach is kidnapped by Bowser thing that is seen a million times. Paper Mario and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door are both highly regarded games. The Thousand Year Door especially is considered to have improved on the Nintendo 64 game, to the point to be considered one of the greatest games maybe ever. It's fondly cherished by a lot of gamers. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I'll come back to my thoughts about those first two games because of Super Paper Mario on the Wii. Super Paper Mario is different from the first two games. Instead of turn-based combat, there is real-time based combat, and the exploration is done more so in the style of, well, quite simply as Super Mario Brothers games. You jump around on enemies and all that stuff still, but you engage in combat and you level up and you jump on enemies and you deal damage, all that stuff. There is also the gimmick of changing the 2D levels to more of a vertical 3D plane, usually to solve puzzles. Super Paper Mario, when I first saw reviews of it, was mostly considered a good game, but somewhat understandably the changes to the formula or the style were reacted to less positively or had a mixed reception. And, of course, I have not completed Super Paper Mario yet, but from what I can tell, it's actually not necessarily that bad of a game. I don't necessarily mind the lack of turn-based combat, even though that's one of my favourite aspects of the first two Paper Mario games. And the story in Super Paper Mario, I think many might even say this, is really good so far. It might even be the best story in the first two Paper Mario games. And that says a lot, considering the stories of the first two Paper Marios, especially The Thousand Year Door, which was a little bit more creative and unusual, were good. And Super Paper Mario, from what I can tell, it's not that bad of a game. It's not like I expected it to be bad. I just expected it to be different. But however, Paper Mario Sticker Star, released on the 3DS some years after Super Paper Mario, is really where, shall we say, the series has gone downhill. Well, let's actually properly look at that. First of all, Sticker Star came out of nowhere to me personally. I had no idea they were making another Paper Mario game after the Wii game. I randomly saw a review of Paper Mario Sticker Star, I think, in a magazine, and it wasn't considered a terrible game, but there were aspects of it which were really mixed or negative. And over time, I have realized that Sticker Star is not highly regarded, especially by Paper Mario fans and gamers alike. I didn't know why until, for the most part, Color Splash was announced for the Wii U. Sticker Star, I can imagine, I have not seen the trailers or had not seen the trailers for it or anything, highly anticipated. One, because, the idea of playing a Paper Mario game on the 3DS is, well, it's a good idea. Playing Paper Mario on a handheld is great. And I'm not sure if the trailers certainly reveal this, but turn-based battles were back. And of course, it looks great, it sounds great. Yet, what is the problem with Sticker Star? Well, I analysed the gameplay of Sticker Star as much as I could before actually playing it. Same for Colour Splash. And having played about 7 hours of Sticker Star, well, it's not necessarily that bad of a game. I know that's sort of already been said. But the gameplay in Sticker Star is just baffling, questionable, maybe even terrible. The main problem with Sticker Star's gameplay is the battle system. It may be turn-based, but the attacks, jumping, using your hammer, everything, are consumables. In contrast to the first 2 or 3 Paper Mario games, when you jump on an enemy, that ability to jump is taken away forever. It's a sticker that goes away. Now, to be fair, there are lots of stickers basically just lying around the world, and you can buy stickers with the really plentiful amount of coins you can get. But why have that? Why not have the jump and hammer be a non-consumable ability like in the first 2 or 3 games? And the worst part is that when you win a battle, you don't really get anything in the way of rewards. You might get coins, maybe you get a sticker, but that's it. I'll talk about the XP nature of the overall series a little bit later in this episode, but surely XP or gain experience points or star points, whatever could have been changed, wouldn't have been too much to ask. It makes battles pointless. And it means that scripted encounters, namely boss fights, all the more annoying. It is usually better in just random battles or battles that you bump into on the overworld just to simply run away, which also gets rid of the enemy. Like, the enemy disappears when you run away rather than stays on the overworld. That's also baffling. And if you happen to bump into an enemy, you may as well battle it because you're not always guaranteed the possibility of running away. And with the environments, as well as the scripted encounters and especially the boss fights, you have to use these special stickers, like say a giant, fan, or a giant hammer, or scissors, whatever. It's actually not necessarily a bad idea, these special stickers, but to actually find them, to actually really progress through the game, is done so much by trial and error. You don't have that light bulb sticker to lighten up a dark room or something. You have to go look for it. And just hope you don't bump into enemies on the way. And if people actually like this gameplay or like Sticker Star, I actually think that's great. The gameplay in Sticker Star is playable, and it's different. And change for the sake of change shouldn't be discouraged, I guess. But it's a change that is not, at least to me, a good change. Like, why make battles pointless, even if you're not necessarily saying in the game, or try not to battle here, when you have a battle system with consumable attacks? It is a shame because, as I've said, it looks and sounds really nice, especially for a 3DS game. But the environmental puzzles and the battle system, and the simplistic story as well, there's some good dialogue in there. Well, only a few lines have mostly made me laugh in contrast to the other games. But the story is also pretty simplistic as well, even for a Mario game / Mario RPG. So, the reception to Sticker Star ties into the overwhelming amount of dislikes to likes for the trailer to Colour Splash on the Wii U. Now, sometimes it's not good to assume things or measure the quality of things by the dislike to like ratio on something like a YouTube trailer of a game. But it goes without saying that the Paper Mario fans, or maybe gamers in general, were not impressed by the reveal of Color Splash on the Wii U. It was a relatively short trailer, and other tidbits of information that were revealed down the line also had a negative reception, but it was treated, loosely speaking, as Sticker Star 2. The characters and story seem to be somewhat similar in their simplicity, somewhat lacking in complexity. The battle system also, while turn-based, had consumable attacks again, and have a special, well, not stickers this time, but cards. Your normal attacks and special things are all cards that go away. And there were also no partners, although I'll talk about that in regards to the Mario fans down the line. I have played some hours of Color Splash as well, very closely to Sticker Star and even Super Paper Mario. I've sort of played all three of them at once, really. Excuse that little bump on the table there. Yeah, the bump on the table is my, reaction to Color Splash. Color Splash is, to me, at least a bit better than Sticker Star. The story and characters and humor are actually a bit better. Maybe a bit better than what people assumed, perhaps. And the battle system and gameplay and stuff, for all their flaws, are somewhat playable. And the production values of Color Splash are great. It almost seems like the paper aesthetic, we talked about the paper aesthetic, has been properly realized. It looks really nice, and some of the music is great. Like Sticker Star and Color Splash tend to have jazzy music, and whether you like jazz or not, it's just a nice, subtle change from the soundtracks of the earlier Paper Mario games. So, I don't have much more to say about Color Splash, not just because I haven't completed it, but a lot of it is similar to Sticker Star. So, there were rumours of a new Paper Mario game. The hashtag remaster 1000 New Door trended for a while, and it seemed like Paper Mario in some form would return on the Switch, and we had a completely out of the blue trailer for the Origami King. Out of the blue considering what's happening in the world with the pandemic and everything. And I remember about to go to bed, I believe, until I saw the Origami King trailer, which doesn't have that amount of dislikes in contrast to the Color Splash trailer. And I remember being really excited with the Origami King trailer, actually. And I was checking out every possible shot, camera angle, bit of gameplay, the story, everything, to try and get a sense of what the Origami King was like. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's done this. I was wondering things like, what is the battle system going to be like? What worlds are there going to be? What characters are there going to be? What's the story kind of like? And considering also the success of the Switch and the general appeal of the Mario games in general, the Origami King looks like it has a lot of exciting potential. Some, or more than some, people are really excited to get it. That is until some recent gameplay demos, new trailers, discussions have made people, including myself, at least a little worried, if not extremely worried. There is a bit more information about the battle system, which consists of a turn-based ring system where you use the ring to move Mario or the enemies around to get the best possible attacks. Looks pretty strategic, doesn't it? Some interesting strategies there, right? Yeah, I guess so. But while the attacks, maybe except for really special attacks, are not consumables and there's a different battle system and whatnot, the question people have to be asking is, what are the rewards from battle? Excuse me. Do you have partners alongside you? Like the first two Paper Mario games, you would have a Goomba or a Koopa or whomever beside Mario, willing to help you out in battle, as well as explore the environment, such as, bombs, blowing up, breakable walls and what have you. So, from what I can tell, including some minutes of a live stream of an early copy of the game, the coins in the game are the main rewards you get from battle. The value of the coins in Paper Mario the Origami King looks interesting actually, where while 10,000 coins in a Mario game, or most Mario games, is a lot, in Origami King it looks like 10,000 coins might be considered, the amount of a cheap item. And considering the value of the coins and the special accessories and items or weapons or whatnot you can get, it is possible that it might be somewhat similar to Sticker Star and Color Splash, except your basic attacks like jumps and hammers and all that are not consumables, but it's almost like you might have to at least grind a little bit through coins to get special accessories or weapons that might either make battles easier or are absolutely necessary to progress through the scripted battles in the story. This, alongside the paper aesthetic and aspects of the story and the concept of partners, which may possibly only be temporary or not that deep, do have people worried about the game, that it's basically Sticker Star 3. Now, the mention of the pretend name, if you like, Sticker Star 3, does lead to me bringing up a question about Paper Mario fans. Now, first off, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a Paper Mario fan. I'm not obsessed with the series. Maybe with this podcast I am now. But I have generally enjoyed the games. The first two games I really like them. You've seen my review of the Nintendo 64 Paper Mario. In a way, I have enjoyed the first two Paper Mario games the more I play them. Maybe at first I was like, oh, that was a really good game. And then after saying, oh, that's a really good game, this is like great, it's better than, oh, it's a good game. And from what I played of Super Paper Mario, Sticker Star, and Color Splash, I have mostly enjoyed them. Maybe not Sticker Star as much. The trial and error with the special stickers and exploration bothers me almost more so than the battle system, and even then I just avoid enemies. So I wouldn't call myself a fan. There are Paper Mario fans who can be maybe divided into different categories. I really don't want to name names, and I really also don't want to, be biased or anything. There are some Paper Mario fans who maybe like all the games, or some of the games, or these other games. And that's great. Like I said before, if you like Sticker Star or Color Splash, I think that's great. I think that's great is my reaction, instead of saying, you like Sticker Star or Color Splash? What is wrong with you? No. No. Yet I have seen, especially with the Origami King, something that can be essentially considered more extreme than the dislike to like ratio of the Color Splash trailers or videos. Now, this is to be expected with fandoms, gaming communities, and the internet in general when you have an opinion on something, but quite simply and obviously, I am getting fed up with the potential toxicity of the Paper Mario fandom. The gatekeeping, the attacks, quite simply just stop it, okay? But does it really exist though? Am I being, not just Captain Obvious, but also just, maybe a bit mean? No. I try my best not to gatekeep the fandom as if to say only the first 2 or 3 games are the definition of Paper Mario, and Sticker Star and Color Splash are not. And there are those out there who may not be willing to give the Origami King a chance. They've seen the trailers, they've seen the gameplay, and they're like, that's it, I'm not playing this. Me, personally, it might be an improvement over Color Splash, it might be a great game in its own right, and honestly, I am actually wanting to play it. Maybe on launch, or at least a little bit down the line. And while I do wonder, of course, if I'm basically choosing with my wallet to basically say I or we want the Paper Mario games to be more like the Origami King, it doesn't necessarily matter to me. Maybe if I play the Origami King and I don't necessarily like it, then I probably won't get the next Paper Mario game whenever that may come out. I think, overall, it's an interesting idea to experiment with change for gaming series such as Paper Mario. The Thousand Year Door was essentially an improved version, or can be considered an improved version of the Nintendo 64 Paper Mario. It is very similar. The turn-based battle is fairly similar. The structure is kind of similar, but the characters and story and worlds and whatnot are more interesting. And Super Paper Mario has a different story, a different style of combat, all that stuff. Yet, it's different, and people are hoping for a proper sequel to The Thousand Year Door. Maybe The Thousand Year Door could be remastered, which, considering that hashtag remaster Thousand Year Door, I hope can actually somewhat happen. I would get a remaster of The Thousand Year Door, least of all because GameCube games are not being ported or re-released or what have you on the Switch for the foreseeable future. And The Thousand Year Door, as well as its Nintendo 64 predecessor, are not cheap for physical game hunting. They're not. The first Paper Mario is on the Virtual Console, and actually that could be remastered too, because most Nintendo 64 games' graphics have not necessarily held up that well, whereas the Thousand Year Door's graphics have held up better. Similar aesthetic, similar art style, and in regards to the art style, which I think could be my final point of the Paper Mario series, is people have looked at the aesthetic of Sticker Star, Color Splash, and Origami King, and maybe not have liked it as much. But the counterpoint to that is, it's Paper Mario. They're made out of paper, aren't they? But the reason it was called Paper Mario to begin with was to, one, look more 2D, possibly for a timeless aesthetic, and two, to look more like a storybook, because it was also called Mario Story in Japan. Mario Story was the spiritual successor to Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. And there may be people out there who are hoping for a proper Super Mario RPG 2, or Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door 2. Alpha Dream, the developers behind the Mario & Luigi series, are pretty much gone now. I have only completed the first Mario & Luigi game, I have not played the others, and to an extent, even Nintendo and maybe Intelligent Systems may consider the Mario & Luigi series to be more of an RPG, whereas the Paper Mario series, namely the later ones, as an adventure game. And that may understandably upset people. I'm pretty sure the genre for the Origami King, according to the Nintendo website or websites, is RPG. Or I could be wrong after I've recorded this and looked onto the websites and it says it's an adventure game. An adventure game with some RPG elements, which the previous Paper Mario games, including the early ones, may as well have been. The Paper Mario games could be considered adventures for people who are fans of traditional Mario games. But RPGs tend to have complexity, and people have worried if the Paper Mario series has become less complex, with the RPG ideas just becoming pointless or repetitive. And there are Paper Mario fans who may have been introduced to the series through Sticker Star. I think that's great. They may like Sticker Star or Color Splash more than the old ones. I think that's fine. I'm not going to gatekeep anyone or anything. And the earlier Paper Mario games may have been reevaluated by those who have played the later games, and then may have gone, oh, I thought I liked Sticker Star stuff. Paper Mario and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door and even Super Paper Mario are great. They're probably better games. Well, let's overall hope that the Origami King can be a great game in its own right. I'll be interested to see what the story is like, which mentally looks funny. Funny in a weird way. You know, the origami characters, the folding of Peach and Bowser and what have you. And if the coins and stuff, and also maybe increasing RPG stats like health and stuff, can actually make battles more interesting or rewarding, I think Origami King could be a different, yet very good Paper Mario game. Now, I may have vaguely reviewed, if you like, more of the Paper Mario games, which was my original intention, you know, to look at Thousand Year Door, Super Paper Mario, etc. But I'm doing this podcast, or this episode of a podcast, to talk about them because I don't have time to. There's my excuse. But overall, let me know what you think of the Paper Mario series, how it has changed over history, what the receptions or reactions to each of the games have been like, and if you're going to play the Origami King, maybe by the time you're listening to this, you may have already played it. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know what you think of Paper Mario, the Origami King. In the meantime, we'll just have to wait for July 17th. Okay, on to the next topic. As suggested by Tason's Gaming Spot, the PlayStation 5. Consider this, if you like, a belated belated reaction, to the PlayStation 5, which was revealed again in June last month, earlier this year. And even though I have been interested in the PlayStation 5 for weeks or months, I did not check out the conference or the event. There are YouTube videos with the thumbnails or the titles or what have you, as well as people who have spoken to me in person, who have revealed at least some of the names of the games that are coming out. Which meant that when I finally looked at the hour-long or so event of the PlayStation 5 from June, of course, I wasn't necessarily as surprised, or was I? I want to talk about the highlights of the conference, and only the highlights because talking about each of the games will just take too long. And just talk about my general thoughts of the software and the hardware of the PlayStation 5. So, if I'm right, the first game that was revealed in the PlayStation 5 event was Spider-Man Miles Morales. I probably butchered that name. I have not played the PS4 Spider-Man game, surprise, surprise. But if this is the follow-up to that game, it looks very exciting. I am also a little bit of a Spider-Man fan myself, so there's always the possibility I can play that new Spider-Man game. It looks great, and come on, how can you pass up the opportunity to be the web slinger and go around all over the place? Gran Turismo 7 was revealed. I did skim over parts of the event, and Gran Turismo 7, to be fair, was a part of the conference I skimmed over. Not because I disliked the Gran Turismo games. I have actually played maybe a little bit of one or two of the games thereabouts, and the Gran Turismo games have quite a following, but I'm not sure if I'm exactly interested in this car racing game or series. But if Gran Turismo 7 is coming out for the PlayStation 5, that's cool. Now, one of my favorite teasers in this event was for the latest entry, if you like, in the franchise that I haven't actually really played. Surprise, surprise. I have played a tiny bit of one of the PlayStation 2 games, maybe somewhere, and I have intended for quite a while to play these games. Yep, it's the new Ratchet & Clank game. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. It was quite a teaser, actually. I liked how the first 30 seconds or so, you weren't exactly sure what the game was. And of course, the general gameplay and of course the final shot of the trailer. This looks like an exciting Ratchet & Clank game. And Ratchet & Clank in general, not just its PlayStation 5 equivalent, if anything else, is a continuation or a bringing back of a 3D platformer, maybe more of an action-packed 3D platformer, but 3D platformers have sort of come back in a way, like with Yooka-Laylee, A Hat in Time, other games like that. The 3D platformer is not dead to the point where we could have just gone back to our Nintendo 64 or anything like that just to play Banjo-Kazooie and games like that. Ratchet & Clank does look very cool, and I say that not having really played the games. I've looked at YouTube videos as well to get a good sense of the gameplay of the older games. I should get around to playing the Ratchet & Clank games, and there's other franchises that are continuing on the PlayStation 5 that I haven't played. Get to those in a moment. When I look at some of the other exclusives for the PlayStation 5, I do wonder about the quality of the graphics for the PlayStation 5, wondering if it's just simply a somewhat nicer looking PlayStation 4. I guess it does look nicer. The not Destruction Derby, but the sort of Destruction Cars game seemed to show me how smooth and really sharp the graphics could be. But I personally am a little bit more interested in the art style of a game, which is why games like Kenna, Bridge of Spirits, really interests me in terms of its art style. And the general gameplay also looks fun as well. And suffice to say, well, we're getting Oddworld, a new Oddworld game, Soulstorm. I've never actually played an Oddworld game, but not because they're weird or anything, but the weird nature of the Oddworld games it's really interesting to me. It's really weird, and the gameplay in the new Oddworld game actually does look really interesting. It's a expanded take on what I assume is the general 2D side-scroller-ish puzzle, whatever gameplay that has been around since the first game on the PlayStation. And speaking of 3D platformers, I almost thought there was going to be a new Little Big Planet game on the PlayStation 5, but we get Sackboy in some kind of 3D platformer. Again, the 3D platformer it's not dead, really, or was never dead ever, but it's seen more of a resurgence, a comeback. There were very little 3D platformers before, we're seeing more of them. I'm actually not sure if Sackboy is the name of a Little Big Planet character, but I thought, oh, a new Little Big Planet game, isn't it? Oh, no, it's not. It's a 3D platformer. Looks interesting. Might be a good game for kids, and I'll come back to what I mean by that. Ghostwire Tokyo. I had heard about at E3, was it 2019, maybe 2018, thereabouts? I can't remember if it was going to be like, oh, by the way, this game will come out on the PlayStation 4 or something, but Ghostwire Tokyo intrigues me because of its atmosphere. It's not meant to be a horror game, but it's got horror elements. And I think the developers said in the conference themselves that Tokyo is going to be very well realized in this game. Quite a few of the other games seemed mildly interesting in terms of gameplay and graphics. Surprisingly, we get a new Hitman game, and it's actually called Hitman 3, the third game. Well, technically it's not the third Hitman game, but it's more of a sequel to Hitman 2. I have not actually played the Hitman games. I have not played around, with Agent 47 in that stealth sort of game. And Hitman 3's teaser or trailer, much like Ratchet and Clank, at first I was a little bit unsure exactly what the game was going to be or what it was going to be about, or if it was going to be a new IP or franchise. But the title comes onto the screen, and there was a few seconds or so, maybe a bit more than that, of Hitman, Agent 47, doing his usual stealth stuff. Hey, a new Hitman game coming out, I'm fine with that. There were a few also interesting games in terms of art style, almost like a cross, I guess, between indie games and AAA games. And I'm always up for good art direction, the sort of a 2D style. Some of the gameplay may not have been interesting, or even then, there are independent games which I think look really pretty, although we're not sure about them, like the game Stray. Stray, as in you take control of a cat, I assume. It looks kind of pretty, but the trailer for the Demon's Souls remake was one I was anticipating. I think as more and more of its fantasy tropes and monsters and whatnot were shown on screen, my initial thoughts were, oh, this is the Demon Souls remake that people who have looked at the event have talked about, right? And well, what do you know? The Souls games are back to really challenge us. Although there's not another Dark Souls game. Was Dark Souls remade or remastered for the Switch and other systems? I want to say it was probably remastered or something like that. But Demon Souls remake. Demon Souls, from what I could tell, has not necessarily been talked about as much as the Dark Souls games, because the Dark Souls games are spiritual successors or what have you to Demon Souls. And Demon Souls and Dark Souls are, of course, hard games. But we won't talk about the difficulty, we'll just await the Demon Souls remake. I've got to say, easily my favourite trailer, even though I knew this game was going to be announced, was Resident Evil 8. And I think it was called Resident Evil 8 Village, I think. Just like in Ratchet & Clank, the early seconds or minutes, what have you, of the trailer gave off some horror vibe, and I was really unsure of what the game was. And as more and more went on, I couldn't help wondering, hang on, is this actually Resident Evil 8, the game they're talking about? Well, honestly, it looks crazy. Resident Evil 8 looks set to be an absolutely crazy, potentially phenomenal, interesting entry into this survival horror series. I've not played 7, so I don't have much comparison, and it seems like, games like Resident Evil 7 and the remakes of 2 and 3 have a more positive reception than, say, Resident Evil 6, for instance. But Resident Evil 8 looks set to continue a reasonable amount of consistency in regards to quality for the Resident Evil series, and by gosh, it looks kind of scary. I'm not saying like, Silent Hill scary or any other form of scary, but looks like a crazy Resident Evil game. I think the character of Chris was there at the end, after they showed the title of the game. Bring it on. Bring on Resident Evil 8, please. And hopefully it might get released for other systems besides for PlayStation 5. That's another thing to talk about at the end of my overall thoughts for the PlayStation 5. And of course, I have not played Horizon Zero Dawn, but a sequel to that. Is it sequel, prequel? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a sequel. Horizon Forbidden West? I think that's what the game is called. Horizon Zero Dawn, which I think could be comparable to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, is getting a sequel. I've got more games to play, and the PlayStation 5 is not coming out for a while, so I should have time, right? So let me know what your favourite, most memorable games revealed in the conference were, and also what you thought of how the PlayStation 5 looks, and its accessories, and other information we may have about it in regards to the digital support. There seems to be a digital deluxe version of a PlayStation 5, which is cheaper, but it doesn't have a disk drive, and the games, as far as I could tell, are almost completely digital only. So if you want to get Resident Evil 8 or Horizon Forbidden West, all those games on the digital deluxe version, you have to download them. But the other PlayStation 5 or its model is the more expensive, disk drive version, which I'm sure can play, Blu-rays like the PlayStation 4 does, most PlayStation 4 titles in regards to backwards compatibility, and of course for physical copies of these exciting new games coming out. Now, first up, the look of the console itself. It looks fine. I'm not really one to praise or criticize a console for the way it looks. Although, to be fair, certainly the looks and aesthetics of a console are somewhat important in terms of the image or the general appeal of a console. So, like, for example, the Super Nintendo looks a little bit more like a kid's console, perhaps, whereas the Genesis/Mega Drive doesn't. And the PlayStation systems have, in one way or another, looked more mature or more adult, more technological, whatever terms I can throw out there, in contrast to, say, a Nintendo platform, the Nintendo 64 versus the PlayStation, but that's a console war that we almost can't talk about now. The black and white colours, which apparently may not be the only colours available at launch, are a good contrast, and much like the PlayStation 4, it seems like putting the console either on the vertical or horizontal side is doable. Considering my current setup for PlayStation 5, if I get it, will be placed horizontally. I will have no room to place it vertically. But the outer, sort of look of a PlayStation 5 with the wings, I guess, as it's been called, does look a little bit odd to me. A little bit odd to me in terms of it's not as streamlined as for PlayStation 4 and even PlayStation 3. But again, I'm not one to really judge a console by how it looks. It's about its software, its compatibility with other titles, its distribution, its controller. The controller does actually look a little bit odd, if I'm being honest, much like the outside of a PlayStation 5. But it's a similar layout to the PlayStation 4 one, so I'm not really complaining, just as long as it's comfortable to hold in your hand. The controller apparently also has a better audio communication support, so you can chat to other players. Yeah, that sounds fine. Hopefully, the vast majority of PlayStation 4 titles are backwards compatible with the PlayStation 5. It's likely I may replace my PlayStation 4 with a PlayStation 5, though it remains to be seen. I mean, there are a few titles there I'm interested in, but I'll have enough of the titles to play on, of course, in preparation for the PlayStation 5 and other new games coming out. Now, I mentioned earlier about certain games being for kids and whatnot. I actually can't help wondering, in regards to the software lineup for the PlayStation 5, if it's more mainstream, there's more mainstream appeal. The independent games and games that are probably more so for a younger audience might give the PlayStation 5 more appeal. Although we'll see how much it costs, both the digital version and the normal version. Honestly, I'm excited for the PlayStation 5. If my somewhat crazy reaction to Resident Evil 8 is any indication, and I will try to play more of a Ratchet & Clank games and Horizon Zero Dawn and all that in preparation for their new software entries. Broadly speaking, like in, the Nintendo systems, PlayStation systems, what have you, it'll be interesting to see how many of the PlayStation 5 titles are not necessarily exclusive and are on the competing consoles. But the majority of those PlayStation 5 games that were revealed, if not maybe all of them, were said to be exclusives. This game is exclusive to PlayStation 5. Resident Evil 8 could have come out on a Nintendo system. We don't even know what the Switch's successor or the upscaled Switch, whatever, is going to be like. There's still only rumours of a Switch Pro. I'm hoping that enough of the PlayStation 5 games, whether they're exclusive or not, can see availability on other platforms. Although, now that I've just realised it, I'm partially wrong about that. Ghostwire Tokyo is also going to be on the computer as well as the PlayStation 5. But there were games revealed at the conference that were exclusive for PlayStation 5. It was said by the variety of potentially talented developers all around the world from all walks of life talking about these games. I am a little bit disappointed, however, that the PlayStation 5 is not... It doesn't necessarily feel like a big upgrade from the PlayStation 4. Maybe we have reached the limit in terms of graphics, and again, I'm more into art style, not trying to make graphics look absolutely amazing or realistic or whatever. And the improvements to the controllers with the audio communication to other players and the UIs, the user interface, and all that, may mean that this PlayStation 5 is truly a sequel, a sequel to the PlayStation 4 rather than a PlayStation 4.5, I guess. Like I said, I'm interested in the PlayStation 5 for its exclusives, and I hope the PlayStation 4 titles I do own are backwards compatible with it, so I can play them still. Okay? Let me know your thoughts on the PlayStation 5. It's said to be coming out in the holiday season or towards the end of 2020. Are you going to get it? Are you interested in any of the games? Ratchet & Clank, Resident Evil 8, the new Horizon Zero Dawn sequel, whatever? Or, well, I will be honest, with the PlayStation 4 generation, I hesitate on the thoughts of getting PlayStation 4 and Wii U and all that. You have to sometimes wonder if you could draw the line, least of all financially. I can't afford to get another console. Well, like I said, I might replace the PlayStation 4. Let me know your thoughts on the PlayStation 5. You might like it more or less than I did. And speaking of the PlayStation 4, that leads me on to the final, very brief topic suggested by Tastes Gaming Spot, which is the RPGs I have been playing this year in 2020. The reason I mentioned the PlayStation 4 in regards to this topic is that is obviously the system I have spent the most time on in regards to the RPGs that I've been playing. So we're going a little bit more story time with this final topic, not really an in-depth discussion like I tried to do with the Paper Mario series and the PlayStation 5. But I have, of course, been playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Well, I have played the Final Fantasy VII Remake. You will have to wait before you see what I think of the game. I was also hoping to stream Persona 5 Royal, but I'm having troubles with streaming at the moment. So I have only played a little Persona 5 Royal. Normally I would have probably played a bit of it each week or something, but I do want to get back to playing it because I love Persona 5, and it's very similar to Persona 5, this Royal version, but I have seen a few of the changes in regards to especially the new female character whose name I have forgotten. I am so sorry. Which means it's not simply just, I'm just playing through the same game again. Why get the Royal version when I could just stick with Persona 5? But that's what I have been playing a bit of. I also had not played Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance on the PlayStation 4, but I started also playing a bit of that recently. Don't have much to say about that. I guess looks fine for a Kingdom Hearts game or something. I don't know. But I have played a little bit of that as well. Considering that I've talked about the Paper Mario series, I have especially been looking at Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, Super Paper Mario Sticker Star, and Color Splash in the last few months, maybe more. And this was mostly even before the Origami King came out. I mean, I was obviously looking forward to a potential new Paper Mario game, while also analysing the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and of course Final Fantasy VII the original. I also went back and played just a little bit of the earlier Final Fantasy games. I tried to play more, for example, of the very first Final Fantasy on the NES. All I can say, that is a hard game. It's to be expected of an NES game, sure, but it's hard. I'm actually not sure if there's any other RPGs besides those that I've been playing or have played this year. So that's Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, Persona 5 Royal, the Final Fantasy VII games, and a couple of the earlier Final Fantasy games. Oh yes, 6, so 1 and 6. And the Paper Mario series, whether I have played them before or not, because the Origami King is coming out, and of course the PlayStation 5 is coming out. Let me know your thoughts on both of those topics, and considering the question I was asked about the RPGs that I've been playing, any RPGs you've been playing this year, talk about all that stuff down in the comments down below on my YouTube video, because that is where I have to eventually stop doing this episode of the Video Games for Fun Weekly Podcast. At the moment, this is essentially only a YouTube video, so the YouTube comments below this video, this recording, is the best way to offer your thoughts on what I have been talking about this episode. You can also reach me to talk about these topics or suggest new topics or ask questions on my Twitter, Instagram, and Discord. The Discord is something I'm gradually getting used to in terms of using, but there is a channel, not a server, a channel on my Video Games for Fun server specifically for the podcasts. And that is also another good place to suggest topics. And retrospectively, for the most part, if you are listening to this podcast audio only, you can find my YouTube channel, Video Games for Fun, VIDDYO Games for Fun, all one word, as well as my secondary channel, Viddy Plays, which as of this moment will see a resurgence soon, I should hope. And again, feel free to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Discord. And again, let me know what you think of the topics, of what I've said about them, and any other gaming topics you feel free to discuss. Let's all be, civil and respectable, to go all Captain Obvious here. I know it's the internet, and I know that there's been a little bit of that stuff with the Paper Mario fandom lately. Maybe there hasn't. But overall, stay safe and healthy in these current times, and enjoy your games. Have a good day or night or whatever it is, and thank you for listening/watching the first episode of the Video Games for Fun Weekly Podcast. Bye for now!